It's straightforward to learn Microsoft Power Automate Desktop. I'm Jensen, an RPA teacher and a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in Power Automate. I'll make sure you'll learn everything very easily and with all the best practices tied to it. To open up Power Automate Desktop, we go to our Windows Start menu. Then we can type Power Automate to search for it. What I like to do here is to right-click and then pin to taskbar. Then I always have my Power Automate Desktop down here in the taskbar. I can even move it, so I can move it here where I think it belongs. Now we click to open the Power Automate Desktop. This will take us to the front page. We will create a new flow and you click up here, New Flow. Then we will give our flow a name. Since this is the first thing we'll build together, I will call this our first robot and I'll click Create. Then it will take a few seconds and now we are ready. What you see here is the main canvas. This is where our code goes. And over here to the left, we have actions. These are predefined code blocks. Let me show you. We can find the system category that is here, expand that, and then take a run application, click it with your mouse and drag it into this canvas. This action will open up any application. Here we need to give it a path. You can either find it the full path by clicking this document over here, or simply just use the Windows shortcut calc.exe. The other parameters are not mandatory, so we will leave them for now. I'll click Save, and now we will click Run to run it. There you go. You have built your first robot. It opens up an application. And this is the application that we will use for the first example. It is very good because it has buttons with addresses like a real application does. It has fields which we can drag data out of, and we can open and close it. First, we want to click an element, say number 5. Instead of finding them down here by expanding these categories, I can go up to search actions instead. And here I want to find a click element in window, and I'll drag it in. This requires a UI element. A UI element is everything you see on your Windows desktop. That could be in the desktop itself, but also here in applications. This means that each one of these buttons is a UI element. So we wanted the 5. Then go click this drop down, say add UI element. Now this UI element wizard shows up. And you can see here, if I hover my mouse over UI elements, it says that here's a button, and blah, blah, blah. We wanted to target number 5. So make sure you hover your mouse over number 5 and it turns red. Then you'll press Ctrl on your keyboard and click number 5. We have now created a UI element. Here we will also say that we'll left click. This is the most default, but if I click this drop down, I can choose to right click, double click, and blah, blah, blah. We will leave it with the left click and then we'll click Save. We can try to run it again. So go up here and click Run. Then it will usually take a few seconds the first time it clicks. There you go. It clicked number 5. One other thing that we will also do is to inspect this UI element because we created it. And let me just minimize this calculator. To find the newly created UI element, you go over here to the right. It looks like a stack of paper up here to the right. Here we have it. We have the parent, that is our computer. Then we have a window called the calculator. And then we'll have the button 5. Double click to open it. So I'll double click this. And here we have the UI element. Don't worry, this code is created by Power Automate Desktop itself. It's called a selector, and you can just see a selector like an address. So here we have a parent called calculator. And if I should use it in a real life example, think about your own address. You have a country minus Denmark, and this is exactly what the calculator is. That is the country. Then as we move down the selector, for example, the number path, that could be my city. And finally, down here in the ID num5 button, that is my actual name. That is the actual identifier. We can also build the selector up here. So here are the trees. We can add and remove elements from it. For now, we will do it manually because that's the most stable solution and you'll learn a lot. Click the text editor up here. Now we can edit the selector itself. Try to go down here to number 5, delete it, and then type 7. Now you will click save, and we will run our automation once more. So the intuition here is now you learn to edit a UI element, and you can now change it so it can click buttons. Now minimize the calculator once more. I will introduce a set variable. So go up to actions and then find a set variable and drag it in. A variable, I'm sure you're familiar with it if you tried coding before. If you haven't, don't worry. A variable is simply just a container that stores a value. It's nice because we can easily change the value of this container. Let me show you. This one here, you can see the variable, that is the variable name. And if I click in it, you can see that the name is surrounded by percentage signs. And that is because all variables in Power Automate Desktop is surrounded by percentage signs. And here if I want to rename this, let's say I want to call it number A, I don't need to surround it with percentage sign. Because what's happened is if I either click with the mouse here or click enter, then if I go back, Power Automate Desktop automatically have done it for me because it knows that everything that comes up here is a variable name. Then we can give it a value. So before we use number 5 and 7, now let's just give it number 2. This means that whenever I call this variable by the name number A, it will give out the value 2. So I click save. Now let's try to use it in our selector down here. So I go over to UI elements and then I'll double click the button 5. Here I want to, instead of this 7, I can either just mark it or I can delete it first, and then we can click select variable. Here I have my number A. To use it, I can either click on it and then click select, or simply just double click as I prefer. It's much faster. This means that we now have used number A, that variable name, in our selector. So whatever we'll give it the value up here, that button it will click. Here I can click save. One best practice that I like to show you is that these UI elements, we need to rename them perfectly, otherwise it will get messy. It will not be a problem now. We only have 3 actions, but I promise you, as your solutions progresses, you really want to get used to this. It's very easy. Just right click, rename, or press F2. So this is not button 5 anymore. I will call it button number A, then click enter. And when I clicked enter here, the name changed over here. Let's try run it with a variable. Now it should click number 2 when it starts. There it is. Again, let us minimize it. Later on, we will of course build a step that will close our applications. Over here in the flow variables, you will see the variables that will get created in the flow. And an important thing to remember, if we haven't saved these 2 numbers right now, we cannot use them. We can inspect them after the flow has ran by simply just going here. We can even double click to see that this is a numeric value and the value itself here. But if we wanted to use it in some other system or save it to Excel, we need to do it when the robot runs. This is also what we call the runtime. So, and we can see we have a number A, we created that one up here, but we also have an app process ID. This is an ID that got created here in the run application. Let me double click to open it once more. Down here in the variables produced, you can see this app process ID. This is clever if we have more apps opened and we want to identify this one. Since we are not using it, another best practice is to disable this variable that got produced. So what we do, click this arrow here, and now you can see there's a little blue tick mark to the left of the app process ID. Simply just click it here, then click save, and it disappeared over here. Always reduce complexity when you develop RPA. That is a best practice. It will make it easy to maintain in the future, both for you and your colleague. So now we don't want to set variable here to use in the selector. We want to let the user be able to select a number that he or she will click. So I delete the set variable and look what happens. Now we get an error. And that is because we try to use a number A variable in the click UI element in window, but it's not initialized. You can see it down here, and this is an important part. That is the errors list. That is, whenever something happens that's not allowed, it will get shown here. It even says parameter UI element variable number A doesn't exist. It says in line 2, but we can also see that it's red marked. This is line 2. So we wanted to let the user select this number A instead. Go up to actions, then find a display input dialog. Don't worry, you will learn these names very, very fast. When I began, I thought I'd never learned it, but I learned it in like 1 or 2 days just by building. So build with me. I promise you, you learned everything. Drag this display input dialog up here in the beginning. We can give it a title. Let's just say number A, and then we can give a message to the user. Here I'll say type a number between 0 and 9. What this action does is to take an input from the user and store it in a variable. So if I go down here to variables produced, and let me click this little arrow again, here we have 2. We have the actual input that will get stored in the user input variable, and we have a button pressed variable that will store what action the user took when he or she clicked the button in the input dialog. Here we will use the user input, but let's give it the name number A so we don't have to change our selector. We simply just type number A like this. We will not use the button press this time, so I will untick it due to our best practice that we talked about just before. Now click save. So now I can try to run it again. Here I'll click run. Now we will say type a number between 0 and 9. Let's type number 8. We will click OK. It will open, and then it will click number 8 in a few seconds. There you go. We'll minimize the calculator again. Let's go to our UI elements, this stack of paper again. Click it. Instead of adding them one by one in the actual actions, we can click add UI element here. And now you can see our UI element figure. In case you don't have a calculator open, simply just go to your Windows Start button, search for calculator. There you go, and open it. But we already had one open, so I don't need it to do that. Now we can add UI elements more than one. Let me show you. So with Control in, I need a plus. So I go down here, I have Control in, then I press the plus. You can see it showed up here. But this time I'm allowed to choose more buttons. So here I want to have the 6 as well. Then I want the equal. And let's just also pick the minus. So remember Control in and click them. Now we have 4 elements up here. That is sufficient for now. I will click done. So we also want the user to be able to type in a second number. Instead of creating another display input dialog, I can just click it, press Ctrl C, that is like copying everything on your Windows, then press Ctrl V to paste it in. Now I have 2 similar actions. But here in the second one, I want to create a variable number B, so I double click the second action. Let's give it another title, number B. Down in variables produced, let's just say number B. Click save. We will use that one over here. And here I took the button 6. That was the second number I clicked. So first, let us rename it. We can try to press F2 this time, or you can also right click and rename. So here I'll say number B, and I'll click enter. Now we will double click to open it and use the number B in the selector. Again, I want to use the text editor. It's safe to say that we can use it down here and we can use a variable over here instead. But this solution is not very stable. In Power Automate Desktop, I always recommend you to open up the text editor and do it yourself. You will learn a lot, and I promise you this will become piece of cake for you in just a week or two. So here we want to, instead of this 6, we want to use the number B. Click select variable, number B. We have now created our second dynamic selector. Then we'll click save. Now we can do our calculation. So I go up here and then I find a click UI element in window. So the robot has typed in number A. Now I want a plus, and now we don't have to create it because look, if I just click this drop down, I have my UI elements here. I can of course create a new one, but we wanted the plus, so I just double click the plus here. That will select the UI element of the plus sign. I'll click save. I also want to click number B, so I drag in another click UI element in window, click the drop down, double click the number B, click save. We also want an equal, so I drag in another click UI element and choose the button equals, double click it, save. So now my flow takes in two numbers from the user, open up an application and do some application work. Let's try to run it. So here, let's just say number 4, click OK. Say number 6, click OK. If your pop-ups doesn't show up, sometimes it will be in the background. You just need to find it, or on your other screen. So now we are saying 4 plus 6 equals, it equals 10, and we want to scrape this result. But let me go back here. One other best practice is to remove the unused UI elements. Again, go to UI elements, because now we created a minus. We are not going to use it. We can, of course, click these 3 dots and delete it, but a great way to do it is to go up here, 3 dots, remove unused UI elements. It will ask us for confirmation. I'll say delete, and there you go. It can remove multiple unused UI elements. It's very smart. Now I go up to my actions, and then I'll find an extract data from window. It's very important that you choose this one and not extract data from web page. So pick that one, grab it in here. Here I need to find a window to get my data from. And this was my last calculator. Don't worry, we will close all these and we'll do it with the robot later on. Here I want to grab this 10. So what I do here is to click this drop down, add UI element, and this is the narrowest field I can get for the 10. Maybe I get a little bit too much data with me. We'll see. Just press Control, click it, and we have it. We can store it in an Excel spreadsheet, or just click this one here, a variable. Now let's go up here, and instead of data from window, I will call this result. Again, another best practice. Rename your variables so they will say something meaningful about the content. That will make it a lot easier for you and your colleagues to maintain in the future. Now I click Save. Then we'll also go to UI elements again. And again, you could find it by clicking this UI elements up here, because it says text display is 10. I want, because this is the result grabber, so I want to first right click, rename, and then I can say something like display result, like this, or something like input field, whatever you prefer, just have a standard. And now let me just click enter, and let me double click to show you the selector of that. Because here you can see that there's nothing in it that says display is 10. You can see it here. If I chose to include this name here up here from the selected tree, name display is 10, that will work each time the result was 10. But for now, we will need to do a lot of calculations, so this will not be nice to include, and that's why Power Automate Desktop didn't include it for us. Then we can click Save. So now we fixed it over here. I also want to, it's not really cool to have all these calculators open. I can use a terminate process. This will terminate all calculators that I have opened. So each time I open a new, it will get terminated in the end. That is another best practice. Always clean up after your robot. Don't leave 10 applications open. I'll choose the process name, click this drop down, and then I'll go down and find the calculator app. It's here. And I'll click Save. Let's try to run it to see everything works. And this data extraction, this will get stored in a variable. So let me just click Run first. Here I'll say 4. I'll say 7. This will type in 4 plus 7, and then it should store the result in the result variable. There you go. Now you can see that first of all our calculators shut down. Fine. You can also see that we got the result. But here we have a display is in front of our actual result. And I can double click to open it. Let's say that we wanted to use this to type into some other system. This will not be nice because the other system won't use this text. In fact, it might give us an error. So what I will do here is to get the subtext. I'll only have the 11 because I know that in front of each one of the results, we will have a display is and a little space. And this will be character. The first character is always 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we will need to get the character at 11. This will work with any result that we will get. Click Close. So here I want to have a get subtext. And you drag it in just below here. The original text, let me move this a bit. That is the result that we got up here. We stored the result in a result variable. And now the clever part comes. Just click this little X here. That will open up the variable picker. Click the result, double click it. That's it. Here I will choose a character position. We just found that. We always know that this display is with a space is always 12 characters or number 11. Then I want to say, at what length do I want? Do I want a numbered length? That could be 1, 2, or whatever. No, I just want to go to the end of text. And here I can store it in a subtext variable. I will just override the result variable because this is what I'm going to use. So I go in here and I can start typing, or I can click this X here, double click the result. I have now used the result. Then I can click Save. Let's also create a log where we store something in it. We will do it in a notepad. And the easiest thing is to minimize your flow here. Right click anywhere on your desktop, say New, Text Document, and we will just call it log text. We will only use it to grab the path of this. So I'll shift right click, and then I go down here, copy as path. Now I can delete it. I will not use it anymore. Then I'll go back to Power Automate Desktop. Another best practice is to use a variable to store file path because they can change. This will probably not stay on my desktop forever. It will move away. So what you will do is go up to Actions and then go find a set variable and drag it in here. I will call this one file path. Then I'll go down here, Control V, paste it in. Then I'll delete the quotation marks like this. Power Automate Desktop will not use it. Then I'll click Save. Now I can use this path to write and store a log. So I go up here in Actions and then I'll find a write text to file and drag it down here. The file path, we just got that. So click this little X here and double click the file path. Then we will choose some text to write. That could just be your robot ran on. And then in hard brackets, this is just because we haven't found today's time yet. I'll just say today's date time. This is something that we'll need to get, but for now we will just use this hard-coded value, so we will know that we need to fix this. With result, then you'll say colon and a space. Now we will use the result that we get out from first this extract data from window, then we have made it prettier down here in the get subtext. And to do so, again, click this little X over here. Whenever you see X, you can use a variable. Click this X, double click the result. That's it. We will append a new line. We will not overwrite existing content because we will use this log to store each one of the results from this robot. So now I will say append content, click save. Let's try to run our robot twice to see that it works. So I'll click run, and here just pick in some random numbers. I will say 3 and 5. I'll make it run. You will see that it will click the elements and then it will shut it down. You will not see these steps, but it will do them in the background. Let's run it one more time. 7 plus 0. And then we will inspect the log. Here, let me minimize it once more. Open up the log and let me drag it in from my other screen. There you go. We now have a log. It's just, it's limited because we haven't added today's time yet, but we will do so now. Let us close the log. Back to Power Automate Desktop. Now to get the current date and time when the robot runs, we go up to Actions. And then you'll find a Get Current Date and Time. Drag it in right after the set variable. I always recommend to have these variables that can change in the beginning. Then it's very easy to come back and fix it. Say that this path will change. I'll need to have my log somewhere else. This is the Get Current Date and Time is a function that we'll use a lot. We will not change the parameters. It will just get us the current date and time from our system time zone. We will store it in a current date time variable. Then I can click save. Since this is a date time variable, I'll need to convert it to a text so I can use it down here in my log. Now go to Actions and then find a Convert Date Time to Text. Here it is. Drag it in after step 2, that is the Get Current Date and Time. Here I'll choose a variable that I should convert, and that is exactly the current date and time. So click the X, double click the current date time. Format to use. Here we can choose a standard format. Then I can click this drop down here, choose the general time, long time. This is just the format that we will use here. You can easily pick one of the other formats if you prefer that one for your log. Now we can see that we have this variables produced called formatted date time. We can click save, go down to your write text to file, double click it. And instead of this one here, we just hard coded this one in. We will delete it. Then we will click the X here, double click the formatted date time. We will now use the date time in our log. Click save. Now go run the robot again to see that everything works. Here I'll say number 5 plus 8. We will let the robot run and then we will inspect the log once more. So 5 plus 8 equals 13. Our robot ran. Go down to your log. There you go. We have now included date time in log. Close the log again and go back to Power Automate Desktop. Now let's try to run the robot again. I'll try to produce an error. Say I type in a letter here that will be number B, and that will of course not exist on my calculator. So I can just type in number 3 here. Now my robot will try to type in or find the UI element with, it says num B button. It can of course not find it. And there you go, we have an error. This also means that our robot will stop here. So we will not write a log that says that this number couldn't be used. It will just stop our robot. Not very nice. We always want to log these kind of errors. I know it's a simple example, but in a real life scenario, we want to track this, and we definitely want our robot not going to stop because of an error. So let me just close this one again. We will use a label down here. That means that if an error happens up here in number A and number B, we will use a label that our robot should continue at. Go up to actions and find a label. Drag it in down here just before the write text to file. And this label I'll just call log. I'll click save. So now this label is a label that I can tell my robot to go to just to go to the log. Now go up to button number A. So I'll double click here. Click on error. Continue flow run. And then here in the exception handling mode. Then I'll choose to go to label. Click the log. One other thing that I would like to do is to store an error message in my result variable. So click new rule, set variable. Go over here to the new var. We will not call the new var, of course. We will use the result. Double click that. And here I can say something like couldn't click number A. Then we'll click save. We will do the exact same thing for number B. So double click it. Then you'll choose on error. Choose continue flow run. Here, go to label. And we will choose the log label. This is an important part of RPA development. That is how you handle your errors. So be sure you pick this up. Then I'll go up here to new rule. I'll say set variable. Choose the result again. And here I'll say couldn't click number B. Then we'll click save. If an error happens now in one of these two, then we will move to the log. We will write the log. But that means that we will not have the calculator app closed whenever we faced an error. So what we can do here is to grab this terminate process and then drag it all the way to the end. In that way, we will have our calculator closed whenever there's an error at the robot. Let's try to run it again, and let's produce an error and see that we can write a log and our robot will continue. So let us just do this. Now it will try to click, I put in a letter. This will fail, so now it should go to writing the text to file and terminate the process. That looks good, but let's inspect the log as well. So I double click here. There you go. You have now created a robot that can handle errors, and you can log your errors as well. So let us close the log and go back to Power Automate Desktop. Now we are done with our first project. Remember to save it, because we don't have an autosave here in Power Automate Desktop. But Power Automate Desktop will ask you whenever you try to quit it if you want to save it. Now I can close it up here, and let us open up this one again. For some reason it created two, one of these. One of them will disappear when we restart the client. We can, if I'm on home, I can go to my flows. There you go, it disappeared. We can see our created flows here in my flows, and we will create a new flow. Now you and I will build a real life project together. It will teach you everything about web scraping, Excel, and a lot of advanced best practices, including working with selectors, scripting, and a lot more. Click new flow. We can give it a name. I will call this one web scraping to Excel, and then I'll click create. And again, it will take a few seconds, and now we're ready. This time we want to open up browser. So go up to actions and then find launch. Here you can choose between 4 browser types. I don't have any preferences as long as you don't pick Internet Explorer. I'll go with Chrome in this example, but if you prefer Firefox or Edge, feel free to go with it. That's the same thing. Here I can say I will launch a new instance. That is fine. Then I need a URL. And now we will use an example page. This will be sports apparel but it could be any cloud web page that you have data in. This is just great because we all have access to it. We don't need a login or something like that. So just type in https colon, and it's only one colon, sorry, and then www.globaljdsports.com. We will choose to maximize it, the window. It doesn't really matter, but it will be nicer when I'm running this and I'm going to explain you what's happening on the website. So I'll choose maximized. Then I can click save. With this single action, when I click run, it will open up a web page with JD Sports. Now we want to do a search up here in this search field. So I go back to Power Automate Desktop. Here, let me just close this one again. I'll find a populate text field on web page. Drag it in. So the web browser instance, that is browser. We created that instance up here. Then we will need to create a UI element. Click this drop down, add UI element. Now we need the browser to be open. So to do so, I'll find it here. And here you can see that these browser elements, they turn red, just like the calculator. I want to type something in here. So again, I press Control and I need to have it red. Control, click it. We created a UI element. Then we can say, what do we want to populate into that text field? Well, I'll say Nike t-shirt. That's fine. I'll click save. So now when I run this will open up a web page, and then you can see here we typed in Nike t-shirt. The problem now is that we need to click either search or an enter to make sure that we do the actual search, but that is just minor things. I go back here. Again, we have a little weird UI element name, so shouldn't we fix that one first? Go over to UI elements. Instead of input text Q, I will rename this to something better. This could just be, I can say, field search, like this. And then it got nicer over here, so I can easily see what we're actually trying to do. So we either want to click search or to send an enter click. We can try to send an enter click. So find send keys, drag in the send keys. I want to send an enter click, and that one you can find in insert special keys, MISC, and go find an enter click, which is here. You could of course also have written it. I just prefer to do it like this. Then I can click save. Now let's try to run it once more. So now it will say Nike t-shirt. It will make an enter click in a few seconds. There you go. We have now done a quite advanced solution, but we also want to grab these results. This could be any search result in a structured format that we want to do. So let's do some web scraping. It's done with a single action in Power Automate Desktop. So I go back here. Then I go up to actions, find and extract data from web page and drag it in. Here, what I need to do, again, we look in the browser instance. I need to open up a search result page, which is here. Then this little live web helper opens. It works a little bit different than the other helpers, but it's almost the same. So here I can select what I want to grab. It's very important that you pick the first element, and that is this one here. Here I want to get the title out, and that is this anchor. So what I can do here is right click. In case you don't see this white menu, in case you just see a normal browser right click menu, what you need to do is to click cancel over here in the live web helper, click cancel once more in the action, and then reload the browser. Try once more, this will work. So extract element value, and now I will get the text from this title. So as you can see, Power Automate Desktop puts green dots around it and it shows up over here. Now we want to indicate a pattern. So we go to the second one, and here we will pick it. It's very important. You can see here I can either pick the anchor or span. that I prefer the most narrow selection, but the important thing here is that if you clicked anchor over here, you also need to do anchor here. I'll do this. There you go. Power Automate Desktop automatically says, well, this is a pattern. I will grab all titles from below. You can see them over here. Now we want to do similar things with, I want the URL to each one of these, and I also want the price. So the URL is tied to the title. So I go to the first one again, then I right click, extract element value. And then if I go down to the href, I can see, in fact, the start of the URL. Click here. There you go. We now automatically got the URLs for all the elements over here. We also wanted the prices. And here you can see these ones are divided in several elements. And this one is on sale. But if I go down here, you can see that we have only one price here. So what I will do is to choose the entire element. That is this div. Because then I can, with the same selection, I can get this div and this div out, instead of just having to create multiple selections. So pick the entire div, then right click, extract element value, and pick the price here. Now we have this discounted price here, and then we have all the other prices down there. We will fix it with some advanced selector gymnastics later on. For now, click finish. Here we will scroll a little bit down. We can store our data. We can store it into a variable. That is fine. And then we can say we want to store it in a variable. What name do we want to store it in? Let's just call it this result again, but because that's what it is. So I click save. Now you can try to run it. And this time we should be able to store all the search results from this search page in a variable. With that variable, it would be very, very easy to be able to write it to, for example, an Excel sheet. So if I go back to my Power Automate, and if we inspect the results by double clicking over here, here you can see all the scrape results. But look what happened. It looks like we're missing value 3. That were the prices. However, we are not. Let me just show you. This could be a mistake like we usually do, that when we, for some reason, Power Automate Desktop sometimes have these bugs here in this variable, sure. But what I can do here to inspect that I actually got the result out is to find a display message. Drag in the display message. And then we simply just write out this result. This is, by the way, in a variable type of a data table with rows and columns. Click this X here, and then choose the result, click save. We run the automation once more. And then we will just inspect the results. So Nike t-shirt, and there you go. So this is just the message box that pops up to us. And here you can see that we have the actual prices in the data table. It looks a little bit weird, the structure. And here we can have the sale prices, and down here we have the normal ones. We will fix that, but now we can see that they are present, and don't worry about that. Again, we have quite many of these browser windows open because we ran it a few times. Delete the display message again. This was just to inspect that we got the right data. So let's write the results out to Excel so we can verify it. Close all these things that we have opened. Write a few ones. So here I'll create a folder on my desktop. I'll right click, new folder. I'll call this project. Usually when I develop, I will have this project folder on my desktop. It's easily accessible. And then when I move it into production, I will simply just move the folder there, or I will change the path in the Power Automate Desktop, or both. What I will do now, I'll grab the path to this folder. So shift right click, copy as path. Again, shift right click to get the path of this folder. Then we go back. Now we will use a variable for the project path. Set variable, just as we did with our log. So drag in a set variable up here. We will call this one project path. and then the value, Control V to paste it in. Again, delete the quotation marks. So that means that when I remove this project folder, say I have some input data for the robot in it, then I will just change it up here and not several times in the robot. This reduces the risk of error. So now we have the project path variable. Now we will save the results to Excel. Let's first launch an Excel instance. So find a launch Excel, drag it in right after the launch new Chrome. Here we can choose to launch with a blank document. That is fine because we are going to write to this Excel worksheet. We are not going to open up a previous created Excel sheet. Make instance visible. Usually that's nice when we create our first robot. We can see the robot works, but it hurts performance a bit and it's not really necessary. Here again, we can see that variables produced Excel instance. This created an Excel instance. Then we can click Save. Now we want to, so we created this one here. And then we want to, after we extracted the data, we want to add a new worksheet with the results too. So I go up here and then I'll say Add New Worksheet, drag it in here after the extract. We can give it a name. Let's just call it Nike T-shirt, since that's what we're getting. So Nike T-shirt. We can choose to add the worksheet as either the first or the last sheet. It doesn't really matter. We will just add it as the first one here. Then we can click Save. So now we have added this one here. Then we need to write the results back to Excel. So I'll find Write to Excel worksheet and drag that one in. Here, what do I want to write? I want to write the result data table. Click this X here, take the result. So where do I want to write it? I want to write it in the column A. That's where I will start my data table. I'll pick the row 2 because I will have headers in the first row. So for now, I just click Save. Whenever I create a new Excel instance, a sheet 1 will be created. You probably know that. We don't really need that, and this just looks a little bit ugly for our solution. So I'll find a Delete Excel worksheet and drag this one in here. Here I'll just say Delete, worksheet name, sheet 1. I'll click Save. Finally, you might think that you have saved this to Excel, but you haven't. You've opened up the Excel instance and then start writing to it. We need to close and save. And this is a common mistake too. I see it often. Because sometimes, OneDrive, you might have OneDrive on your computer that syncs with your Excel sheet. So maybe some of them will get written and you think, oh, well, Power Automate Desktop is not working. It is. We just need a close Excel. So go up here, drag in a close Excel. So here we can say Excel instance. Do not save document. We will. So we'll say save document as. And we will provide a document path. Click this X. We have our project path. We know that. But we can also make a subfolder and then we can write the results in there. So how that looks will be results. And then we will have our name of our Excel book. So I can just say results.xlsx. So this will be a subfolder called results. And our Excel book will be named results.xlsx. What is important here when I click Save is that we go to our project folder, double click to open it. And it's over here. Here we need to have the subfolder. So I right click, new folder, that is my project folder. And I'll just need to create that. Otherwise, our robot will give an error. You can, of course, create the folder with the robot if you're advanced, or not really advanced, you can do it with the actions. But for now, this is fine. Let's try to run it and see that we're able to save the results. And maybe we can clean a little bit up. We don't really need all these windows open. So, and of course, we are able to close down the browser windows like we did with the calculator. But let's fix one problem at a time. That's how we solve it here with Power Automate Desktop. So now let us assume that we are done here. I go in here, we can see that we are done. Let's see if we have saved the results. Go to your project, go into results. Here we have it. Open up the Excel book. I open up on the other screen here. There you go. We now have our data, and now we have the prices. Yeah, we have some scraped data here, or maybe that's just an Excel bug. It was. So here we have the title, we have the URL, and we have the prices. I know this format looks a little bit weird. We will fix it. Don't worry. One step at a time. Close it. Go back to Power Automate Desktop. When this robot runs over and over, it will override the log that we got out here. That's the results.xlsx. So let's use the date time again, but this time we will use it to create a dynamic file name. This is another good practice to learn. Go up to actions. Then you'll find a get current date and time here. Drag it in right after the set variable. Again, we like to have these things that we use in our flow, these variable settings in the beginning, so I can easily come back to the project and change. Here I will just get the current date and time, system time zone, and I'll save it to current date time. I'll click save. That's what I wanted to get 2 seconds before. Let's have a convert date time to text. Drag this one in. Again, you can't do nothing wrong just trying to do these things yourself. So today, when we are building, if you see something that you would like to add to the robot, just try it. You will not break anything, I promise you. So here, the date time to convert, that will be the current date time. Click this X, current date time. This time we will use the custom format, because now we will need to write a date time that we can use in our file naming. Here I will use the .NET custom date time format, and that looks like this. You might know it from Excel, and if you want to Google to know more, you can Google .NET custom date time format. That is a nice guide. Then I'll say days, hours, minutes, seconds. We will use this one here. Now we will get a date time down to the seconds. We will use that in this file name so the results won't get overwritten. Here we saved it in the formatted date time. I'll click save here. Now open up the Excel. In the document path, right before the results.xlsx, we will use the formatted date time. So click this X, formatted date time. Maybe we should have an underscore in between here so it looks a little bit nicer, like this. We can click save. Let's try to run our robot with dynamic file naming. Now we shouldn't overwrite any existing data that we have previously recorded. So now we are scraping, and again, we can't really see it. Usually this robot will just run on a server, so it won't make any difference, but here we can see that we're done. Let's just close it. There you go. We now have a different file, and I can open it. That's just the same results, but now we are not overwriting our results each time we are running the robot. Let's also add headers to this Excel sheet. So I go back here. Right before this Write to Excel worksheet, let's have another Write to Excel worksheet. Drag this one in here. So here we need to have the Excel instance once more, and then we will just add in the row for the headers. This needs to be done in a data row format, and you can actually see this data table as a collection of data rows. So here we just add in one more data row to this collection. In fact, we don't do it, but you can see it as such. Here we add a row, and right after we add a collection of rows. So that's the way to see it. The way to write it is to have 2 percentage signs, then move inside here. Then you want a curly bracket in the end, in the start, and in the end, like this. And in here you want a hard bracket start, hard bracket end. And again, I can make some just to so you can see what's going on. This is how it looks. Then inside here in single brackets, that is always texts. Here I can just write products, That could be the first column name. Then I'll have a comma. These ones are column separated. Then I'll have the URL like this, a comma. Then I'll have the price. And don't worry, you can just, when you click save, Power Automate Desktop will tell you if there's an error in your typing. And here I'll have now. We will not use it now, but we will use it a little bit later in this lesson. So let's just add them now so we don't have to do it later. So these ones look great. We will write it in a specified cell. These ones will go into column A, and now it will be row 1. This is only one row. I can click save. If it gives you an error here, you have not written what I did here. You just need to carefully write it one to one. Let's try to run it once more. Again, as a Power Automate Desktop developer and an RPA developer in general, we usually run these robots multiple times when we develop to see that each step is carried out correctly. Now, let me go back to my Power Automate Desktop. We're done. Go down here. And this should be the third one, or was it this one here? There you go. We now have the headers. Products, URL, price, now was. We don't have any data here, but the intuition is that later on we want the was price here. We want the now price here. So let's save it again. Now, let me go back to one of the search results. If I scroll down here, you can see that we have multiple pages. We want to be able to scrape each page. And the intuition here is that we want to look for this next page. If it's present, click it. It also means that when I go down here, if I'm on the last page, that's page 4, let me go down again, it's grayed out, we cannot click it. But we need to make some sort of logic into Power Automate Desktop. The first thing I would like to do is to show you how the code behind this next button looks. Let me go to page 1 in the first one here. Then let me copy this URL, open up a new browser and paste it in here. So now we just have a new tab, but with the same search result. I'll go to the last page on this tab. That's it. Now I want to inspect this one. And on the first page, I want to inspect this one. This can be done by simply right-clicking, say inspect. This will give you the code of this site. And here you can see as I move my mouse over here in elements, this will give me the code of each element. And this is the code that Power Automate Desktop uses. So it is a nice thing to do, to know. And here I can see that in the A element, there's something called title next page. And that is when the next page is available. But if I go over here, let me inspect that one instead. And then let me move down here. And here you can see that I have this span class button btn default disabled page nav. So in here I don't have this title equals next page. So I can use that. I can look for an element containing this title next page, this attribute called title next page in the A element. Shouldn't we create that in Power Automate Desktop? Let's do so. Go back here. First, I want a loop condition. And a loop condition will continue as long as a condition is true. So go look for a loop condition. And then we'll need to talk about where do we want the loop to be. We want to surround it with this extract data from web page. So drag the loop condition right before the extract data from web page. That is here. This loop will just run forever until we say it shouldn't run. So just type in true in %sign. This means that this condition will always be true. Then we can click save. I want to drag in the extract data from web page. And in here, I also want to check for the next button. So this loop will extract this web page as long as there is, or it will click the next button as long as there is a next button and then extract the next page. Now we will find a if web page contains. like this. Drag it in the loop condition. We will have it here. And here I'll ask if this contains the element, and that will be the next button. Click the drop down, add UI element, go find the next button. It will be here. Press Control and pick it. If you haven't had the next button up, simply just find it in the browser. Then we can click Save. And now I realized that, well, I want to scrape first, and then I want to check for a next button before I exit. So I can simply take this extract data from web page and move it in front of this if I realize that I did a certain mistake. Now I want to inspect the UI element of this next button. So go up to this one here, and here you can see it got created. It got created as an anchor search Nike. Double click to open it. And here you can see this looks very weird. And this will only click a button with the ID search from 72. And of course, this will not work on the next, like this one here. It worked here, but it will not work here since, let me just show you what this means. I will have this one here, have it here. And this one says from 216. So what we need to do is to create it ourselves. And this is very easy. We just need an A element, and then we want the title equal next page. And sometimes it's a little bit of experimenting. It might be today as well, but we will go up to the text editor. And then we had this A, and then we had the title equals to. So let me have the hard bracket. Instead of typing it, we can just go to the browser again. You can type it if you want. Then go over here, double click, copy, Control C, go back to Power Automate Desktop, paste it in. There you go. This is our selector for the next button. I will click Save. So if this, so the intuition here, we scrape the first page. Then if we have a next button, we want to click it, and then we will run the loop once more. Else we want to exit the loop. Let's first fix this awful name. So I go over here, right click, rename. And this is the button. I will call this button next, like this. So now it looks a little bit better. Here I want, so this one is only when this is true, we want to click it. I also want to find an else, and that is whenever this is not true. When there's no next button present, we will need to exit this loop. So here I'll find an else, drag it in. Let's fix the exit part first, because that is easy. I'll just find an exit loop, drag in the exit loop here. Then I want to click on the next button if that's present. And that means that we click it. Then we move down here. We will not perform the else part. Then we move down here. The loop will run once more. Then we will extract the data. Then we will click the exit if that's present. That will happen each time we have a next page button. And then we will exit. So here you will find a click link on web page. Drag this one in, and you can have it anywhere you want. I will just, not anywhere you want, you can drag it in inside this if. So here I will choose the UI element. We already created that. That was the button next. That is the one we want to click. So I'll just double click here. Then I can click Save. Now we should be able to looping through each page and clicking the next button. Let me just delete some of these. We will, of course, terminate the Chrome in the end. Let me just save it just for the sake of my computer going down. You should make it a habit just to do so here and there. We are saving. Let's try to run it. And what we want to see here, what we like to see here, we do the search, and then we should be able to click each next page. We will, of course, extract it. Then we should be able to click the next button in a little while. There you go. Now you can see up in the URL bar, you can say it says from. Now we are scrolling. And then this might be the last page, page 4. Then our robot should end without an error. Let's see if I go back here. It did. And what happened here is that we now created this solution. So we want to scrape the data, and unfortunately there's no way to join these data tables as we scrape them. We scrape one data table here, then the loop will override it. over and over. There's no direct way to join these, but we can make a very nice workaround, which is what we will do. So what we'll do here is that when we do this search and we assume that this search result exists, later on we will see how we error handle. Then we want to do one extraction. So what we can do here is that I can Control X, copy it out, cut it out, place my mouse on this loop condition, Control V, I just placed it out here. So it will extract one time here, and then it will go in here, and if a next button exists, it will click it, and then we will have another extract data from web page. We do this so we can join these two. It's also a nice exercise to see how to join two data tables. So I'll go in here and I'll just, I have this in my clipboard. So I'll just mark this else, Control V, now I have it in here. I will give it two different names. So this one is result, that is the base one. And then we will have the just data from web page whenever we scraped new pages. Then we can easily merge it. So double click. And down here in the variables produced, we can call it data from page. We do this again so we can easily join the results. So we have a base one here, and then we have the data from web page. So what we will do here is that we take each row in this data from web page and add them to the result. So it looks like this. Find a loop. And this is not very advanced, but a bit of advanced logic. I don't expect you to fully understand this the first time. Just do it with me. You will learn so much and you can easily do it yourself. Just pick in a loop this time. A loop will go from a start, that could be 1 to 5, and then with increments of 1. We will change this slightly. This loop will run 5 times. So this loop will start from index 0. That is because a data table is 0 indexed. That means that when we call the first row, it is index 0. So we say index 0. Then we want to end at whatever we have, the number of rows that we have in this data from web page -1. Again, because it's 0 indexed. So find this little X here, take the data from web page, and then you'll take the rows count, double click here. We need to subtract 1 from it. So go in here and then say -1. The variables produced, that will be loop index. This will keep track of where we are in this loop. So I'll click save. Now I want to set a variable. I will need to add things to this result. And it's very easy. So have a set variable, drag it in here. Move it up here. Pick the result. That is where we want to add to. Then I want to add each row in this data from web page. And since I'm looping through them here, I can just use this one here. So I want to say, I want to have whatever is in the result already. And then I want to say, I want to add a row from data from web page. Find it here in the X again. And now you need to remove the percentage sign here. We only need to have percentage sign in the start and in the end. Then I need the data from web page. And then I want to say in hard brackets, I want what index, what row number I need to add to the result. And we have that stored up here as the loop index. So here I just find the loop index. Again, I use this variable picker so I don't make mistakes. Now I will do this and I'll click save. So what we will do now is that we will add all the new results to the result, and then we will write it out. So now we will have all our results in the Excel sheet. Let's just click save again. One thing that we can do to speed a little bit up is to have this run delay to 1. If we run our flows from out here, this will be default, but in the debug, that is the developer version, it adds these delays. So let's just have this by 1, and here I made a breakpoint. These ones here are breakpoints. When you click a line and it turns red, simply just unclick it. Otherwise your robot will stop there. Now we try to run it once more. And we will do the search, and then we will scrape the different pages. It will take a little bit longer here, and we will see that this will work. Here now it's page 2, then it will be page 3, page 4, and we should have our results. This was our page 4, and we should be done here. Then we can go back to Power Automate Desktop. Now you will see that in the results we have 228 rows. So now we got all the results from each one of these pages. Let's also see that, well, we have a lot of windows open. Let's also open this one here, inspect our results. So now we not only have the first page, if I scroll down, we have all the results here. And if I scroll up again, it's still with the headers, of course. So then I can close. We also want to do a little bit of error handling. Let's say that the item doesn't exist. That could be that we have a search item that were not in the inventory. Let's just type in Anders Jensen org. Let's try to run the robot. And here I want to be able to let my robot continue whenever it gets an error. Here there's nothing to scrape. So our robot will look for this collection. It will realize that it doesn't exist, and then we will have the error. So if I go back here, you can see that it can't find this data. So again, we will create a label. Let me close this. I'll scroll down to the end, because if Anders Jensen org, if that's not a valid item in my inventory or this web page, I want to move to the very end. And let us just have a label like this. And first I will just have the label here. And here I will call this label end scraping. And then I'll click save. Then I will go up in the first extract data from web page, double click to open it. On error, I'll go into the continue flow run. In this dropdown, I'll go to label, I'll go to end scraping. This is when an error is produced here. Similarly, I will double click the second one. On error, continue flow run, go to label, and here I'll say end scraping. I'll click save. Now let's try to run it once more. Now we should be able to handle the error. This will just go to the end when it realizes that this doesn't exist. And it will say, well, we cannot find it on this page. There's an error. So we just move to the end. There you go. Our robot continued, and we have no errors anymore. Now we want to be able to do multiple searches based on an Excel input. For now, we just had the Nike t-shirt, the Anders Jensen org. So what I will do here is to create some input data. Go to the project folder again and go to the root of it. So this is our project, and within that we have the results. Right click, say new, and we'll create a new Excel worksheet. I'll call this one products, like this. Let's double click to open it. Here we go. So I want to rename the sheets to products. So I right click, I'll say products like this. And then I go up here and make the headers. And this one will be product here. And then I'll have the Nike t-shirt like this. And just do it as I do. Then we'll have the Asics gel. We'll also have the Adidas shorts. Then we'll have the Anders Jensen org, just to see that our robot can handle errors. And finally, we'll have the Converse. So these are the ones we'll make. We'll have 4 things that we will think will succeed and 1 error. So that's it. I can just make sure I save it, and then I can close it. Now I know that this products is in my folder here. I go back here. So what I will do before the launch new Chrome, I will have another launch Excel. This one will read my input data. So drag it in here. Here, I will not have a blank document. I will open the following document. Which document do I want to open? Click this X here, take the project path. Then I want to, then I know it's in the root, so I just make a backward slash, and then I can say products.xlsx. That's the one we just created. We will not have it visible here. We can choose to have it open as read only. That's nice because we are not going to write anything back. It will give us a little bit more performance. It's not a lot. Finally, the variables produced. Excel instance 2, that's not really nice. So I go down here and rename it. I will just call it Excel instance products. Like this. And then I can click save. Then I will read from this Excel instance. So I'll find a read from Excel worksheet. Then I'll drag it in here. I will read from the Excel instance called Excel instance products. Now it's nice that I named it properly. Here I want to say not the value of a second cell. I want the all available values from worksheet. Go into advanced because we also had headers in our sheet. I know it's only one column, but we had headers in, so mark it here. Then the variables produced is called Excel data. Go in here and say Excel data products and then click save. So what's happening here is that we read the products, we launch the Excel instance with the book, we read it, and then we'll also need to close it. I'll just do a close, and then you'll find a close Excel, and you will drag that one in here. Here we will close the Excel instance products, and we will not save it. By the way, we can, since we only open it as read only. We can click save. Then let's try to do a breakpoint and test our automation. Because as I told you, we can just make breakpoints. Try to click here. At this place, the robot will stop. Because now when I try to run this, you will see that we only perform the actions until the breakpoint. And then our robot pauses. But that means that I can go over here to the Excel data products. I can double click and I can inspect the data that I wanted. This looks nice. This is exactly what I want. I can click close here. And then since I'm not really interested in the rest of the robot, I know that this works. I can just click stop. So now I know that I have 5 products to run through. And those ones are the 5 products in the Excel data products. For each of those products, I want to do a search. I want to click return. I want to extract the data. I want to write to Excel. I want to do all these things. So let's find a for each. A for each iterates to a collection. And here our collection is this data table. So find your for each, and then you will drag it in right after the launch Excel and before the populate text field on web page. Here I will say its value to iterate. That will be my Excel data products. Double click here. The current item, this is just a reference name. We can name it exactly like we want. So if I go in here and then I can just say current product like this, I can click save. We haven't got a lot in it, but we will have this. Click this populate text field and go all the way down to label and scraping. We will not move the close Excel. So what you can do now is to press Control and click untick the close Excel. So now we marked everything we wanted in the for each. Click the Control X, that will cut out everything. Now click on the end. That's important. Click here, Control V, that will paste in all the actions and remove this breakpoint up here. We just need to fix a thing or two. So for each one of these, we will not search for Anders Jensen org, but we will search whatever is in the Excel data products. That is the one we call current product. So double click this. And here I will find my current product over here. And then I will have the header. I know we only have one header in that data table. So I'll say hard bracket, single quotation mark, and then I'll say product. That was my header. And then I'll have a hard bracket. Let us copy this one. We're going to use it. Again, let me just give you some time to actually write it. So I click save. So this is our search. Let's scroll a little bit down to the add new worksheet. Here we want to dynamically add the new worksheets. I call mine current product again. That is the worksheet that we want to add, and write the results too. One thing that we'll also need to do is that here we delete this sheet 1, but we can only delete it once. It only got created at initialization, so we simply just move it down here. Now we can start the robot and see that it works. So we will initialize it, and then you will see that we loop through each one of the products. Some of the products we only have 1 page on. This Nike t-shirt we have 4 pages on, but it should work on each product that we have, including the arrows. In the arrows, we just wanted to be able to go to the next product. Later on, we will write a little log. So now we have the Nike t-shirts, then we will have the next search item. I think there's only a 1 pager, that was the Asics gel. And then we will move on. In case you want to network and solve RPA problems with more than 5,000 RPA developers, then you should join my Discord. You can click the link in the upper right corner. Here we each day solve real-time problems and network around our careers. I think Converse was the last one. We have 2 pages. And we should be done. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to see whenever we're done, but let's go try it. So here again, I can scroll down and you can see that we are on page 2. That was fine. Then we go back to Power Automate. Everything looks fine here. And then the very nice part is that if I go to results, move in here, then as you see here, we have all the results scraped from each one of these products. So now we can do multiple scrapings in the same Excel book. So now I will show you an advanced concept, but a very important concept, and that is selector work. Close this one here. What I want to do is to let me be sure that I have a page open. That could be this Converse that we had this last time. Then I go back here. Let us open up the first result here. That is the extract data from web page. That's the first one. The second one was in here. So double click to open it. Here I will open up a search page. I need that to make this web helper open. Then I will go into advanced settings. Here you can see the base selector. That is the address for the first element in our structured data. So that will be this one here, the LI. That will be the first LI element. And further down below, we have a selector for each one of these ones. The first one was the title. Then we had the URL and we had the price. And these ones are created in a CSS format. So this one was the price, and this took everything. We saw that it took the discounts, the now was, but it also took these base prices. Let me scroll down to find the discount. Here you can see it. So what I will do here is to go into this price, mark everything, Control A, Control C, copy it out. Go to Windows, find a notepad. It's always nice to have a little notepad when I develop. Here I'll say base price. And then I'll Control V, I'll paste in the selector of the base price. This is quite nice because now we can save it. I can also save it for upcoming projects, so I always recommend do so when you work with these selectors. Save it for the next time, save it in your development folder. Now we are done here. So let me just close this for now. And I will also cancel this, so it makes it a little bit nicer to look at. Let me just refresh here. So what I want to show you, because I told you that this was the base price, and let me just go up here. I can right click and inspect it. I can also press F12 on my keyboard. That will also open up the developer tools. Again, you should only have this if it has something weird going on, or if it has it over here to the right, then you should dock it to the bottom. It's designed for that. So these 3 dots, click them, dock it to the bottom. then you'll be sure to be in elements. Now go up to the first element. Then you'll click this arrow here and we will inspect this one here. Let's just click the title. So we had this li element that we saw that it says span div eq o 0, and that was inside the first li element. And if I just let me do this, you can see all the different li elements. That was the base selector. Those ones are stored here, and the base selector gave us the address of this li element. That is the first one. And then this one says in the li element, that was our price. Find the span, take a span, and then take the first div equals to 0. What happens here is that this is our span, this is our span, and then this is the div. You can see that there's 2 divs, but this is the div. If I expand this, there's our price. That is how Power Automate Desktop the price, and we can use that. And similarly, let me just show you for the discounts. So I scroll a little bit down, click the arrow. We will just do it here. And similarly, you can find it inside the first li element. And here it looks a little bit different, but it is in the was it is in the now price. So we have 2 different categories here. That is the 2 span elements. Let's do it one by one. There's no magic here. It's very important that you do this. This will give a very nice addition to your Microsoft Power Automate Desktop playbook. So here again, here I will say price now, and let's create a selector for that. We will use it in Power Automate Desktop in a little while. So what can we do here? And maybe we should do this, and then we can just take the price, and then we can have the actual now price. Let's start with that. So this is the now price. If I click here, we can find it in here. So again, I know I'm in this, I have the span div. That was the base selector of the price. But right now we can see that in this one here, and that was the reason it grabbed everything from in here. You can see here, the div that got both the was and the price. I'm only interested in the now, and the now price should be in here. So what we will do here is that we'll say, find the span element with the attribute class equals pri, then move inside the span with the class equals now, and let's get us the span element with the attribute data oi price, and here we will have the own text. So that looks like this. So the first one, that is the span class pri, and we can just do this. So I'll say span, then a hard bracket, class equal, and then we will have the pri. That is the first part of our selector. Then we will say what comes next, and that is the span class now. So, and we can do this. There is this element with the attribute class equal now, like this. And now I just need to make very sure that we do this. This is why it's sometimes better just to copy paste, but since I'm teaching you here, it's a little bit more easy to do it like this. And then I will have it the span, and then I'll say, what does it say? Data oi price, and this is just an empty attribute, so there's no value to it, but we can use it. So we just say equals to into quotation marks. So this is our selector, and here we will combine it with the base price. This was that gave us up here, and this. So if I just do this, Control C, then I'll go in here, Control V, and then I'll do this. This is the selector for the price now. Similarly, we will add the selector for the price was. So here I'll say price was, and again, now I can just do the base price first. I know I'll need to do that, and then I'll say, what do I want here? Well, now I want to, let me close this. Now I want the was, and then I want the data oi price. So here I'll say span class equal to was, And then I want to say, now go look in the span data OI price. I already have it up here, so I'll just copy it. So this will give me the was price. Then I also need to do a little bit of work because this base price only got me the actual, this one got me all the prices. I want to be able to have a price original. So here I'll say price original. That is when there's no sale. So I'll do this. And I know I need to have this base price first. And then let's inspect a original price. So what we will do here is to do this. Then we'll move in here. And here we can see that we have, just inside here, we have a span, and here we have the date OI price. We also have a class equals price, so let's include both of them to make it stable. This is also to teach you a little bit about the selectors. I know this can seem a little bit hard, but you will get very used to it. This is an important skill when you want to work as a Power Automate developer, whether you're a citizen developer or professional developer. So this one was the first class equals price. You see it here. And then we also want the data OI price. And what we will do here is to simply just say we now have another attribute that was called data OI price equals like this. It's important to say that if we are typing something wrong here, then it will not work. Now we have the selectors for now, was, and original. Then we can go back to Power Automate desktop. Open up the extract data from web page. So we'll just take the first one here. Then we'll need some search results. Sometimes you just need to move the window a little bit away, because now we need to scrape 3 different columns. We already made it ready when we created the headers for our sheet, but we'll go into advanced settings. And here it's very nice. I want the original, I want that here. Let me just clear it so we'll make it. And then I want the now, and then I want the was. So I separate them into 3 different columns. And just to do this, so we can have it here. So I want the original up here, and that was this one here we created. So just do this, and up here you will type own text. Then we will have the now. So here we create the selectors ourselves. We're still at the first item, so that one is fine. And then we will have the was. Like this. So now we have created them ourselves. I'll click OK here. Here you can see our price. That one works fine in the first one. Let's scroll a little bit down to see. Here we now have separated them into different columns. Let's run and inspect. So I click finish here. I'll click save here. And one important part is that we'll also need to do it in data from web page. So open that one as well. And then we can try to run it. Again, here we should have it. Just do the exact same thing. So make 2 selectors. Delete this one here. We will have own text in each one of them. So I can just do this. Own text. And now we will have the selectors in each one of these 3. Make sure you pick them in the right order. So the original, the now, and the was. Like this, and here you can see it again. We have the sale here, and we can click finish. So now we have set that up. I will like to save it, and then we can run the automation. So now we're doing the exact same thing as before. Let me fast forward this. That's it. Let me go back to Power Automate desktop. It ran successfully again. And again, save this notepad, and let me just inspect the results to see that I have what I want. There you have it. We now have, if it's a normal price, we have it here. Otherwise, we have it as a now and a was. And we have that for each one of our results. Now, let us try to get rid of this little pound sign so we can use the amount in calculations. Close this one here, and then I go back. Sometimes when the predefined Power Automate desktop actions is not enough, we can use scripting. We can choose between Python and JavaScript, but my preferred one is VBScript because how well it works with the Microsoft applications. Let's see how we can get rid of the pound signs. And here you will go to the course page. So I created this course page for you. Here you'll find the VBScript. It's, by the way, also fill in the resources. That could be the Discord, which I can recommend you to sign up. You're also welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and please send me a message if you like this course. I'll be so happy. And furthermore, I have an always updated Excel sheet with the best Power Automate desktop resources. So these are my 3 go-to resources, which I recommend you to click on and use. Anyway, here is our simple VBScript. It's just a VBScript that initializes Excel. It opens up an Excel file, and here we need to put in our path, and then we will loop through each sheet in the Excel book. Then we will get the range that we are going to use, that is the range which have data in. Then we will loop through each one of the rows, the cells, and we will replace the pound with nothing. Then we will save, close, and quit. We will do it outside of our Power Automate desktop flow or when we have ended it. That's a practice I recommend, so we will not interfere with what's going on there. And usually Power Automate desktop and Excel doesn't go well hand in hand, or rather we need to handle it accordingly. So here I'll just copy the script. You can do that up here in the right corner, or you can mark it. Now we have the script. Then go to Power Automate desktop. So we will do it right at the end. Here you will find a run VBScript. Here we'll drag it in. You don't need to understand VBScript. You just need to understand how to use it. So here I paste it in. That is my script. The variables produced, let me do this. The output, that is if we take some output out of this script. We don't, so we can untick it. The script error, that is whenever this script, we made an error in the script or our data is not there for some reason, then it will log to a variable. We will not use the variable for now because I know this script will work. I created it and tested it. But when we develop, I recommend that you turn this on. And here you can see that I have my Excel book path. This will not work because this will just be a hard-coded path. It will not work. But if I just go up here, I know that I just used it. I just have this path that I want to format. That is right here. So the easiest thing will be to save, double click this close Excel, copy it from here, Control-C, and then use it in your VBScript. So sure you do this, and now we have it. Then click Save, and let's try to run it again. And now our result should be nicely formatted without the pound sign. So again, I will fast forward till the automation is done. That's it. Let's go to Power Automate desktop. Oh, it still runs. So here you can see our VBScript is running, and it doesn't really matter. We will just wait. That's it. And if you had an error in your script, it will show down here. It will say something that you should inspect. But for now, this is fine. We can see it. Then we will open this one here. Bingo. We now have gotten rid of these pound signs. We did it for all the sheets. This is not so much, this script is not so much to show you how to get rid of pound signs, but it is to show you that it's very easy to use code in your workflows. Now let's create a log in the end. So I click Save here. We'll find a set variable. So here I'll have a set variable and I'll drag it in. Let's talk about the structure of our log. I can start by calling it log, and here we will write it. This will not be, we will not have everything nicely formatted in to start with, but we will use this format. So I'll say your robot ran on, and then we will have a date. I don't have the date nicely formatted yet, so I'll just use this. This is a placeholder. Then I'll go down here, I'll say errors. This will count my errors. So here I'll have an error count. Then I'll have the successful. This will be the success count, like this. I'll have which one of the search terms were errors, if any. Here I'll have the error names. Success. I'm so bad in writing English sometimes when I code, and it's been a long day. So, and yeah, if you have any questions about Power Automate Desktop or this tutorial, please give them to me in the comments below. I will gladly engage with you. So now we have this one here. I also want to tell in the log which input we used. That will be the path to input data. And this is just the structure of it. This will, of course, all these values will not work. I only did this. This is just to have placeholders for everything. Then I can easily fix it one by one. The output, and then I'll have the path to output data. And here this should, of course, be data as well. Let's have them one by one. The output, I still think it's in my clipboard. Let's go try it. So if I just do this, there it was. So this will write out the output Excel book. Then I want the input data. So here I'll click save. Which data did we use? We used this one up here in the launch Excel. So double click it, copy it, and then go back to our log. So we fix them one by one. Here it is. And the success count, that is each time we have a successful item. So we create a counter. Let me click save here. Let me go up here. And that is at the result here. I'll have a set variable. And here I will call this success count. So that's each time our robot will get here. Then we'll just say success count +1. And we will make addition to this success count by saying +1. And here we can't find it as just because we just created it. So the lazy developer will have to write it. And we'll do this. Otherwise I could have saved and moved into it. But this is how we add 1 to the success count one by one. So we do it by here. So now we have a success count. And I can go back to the log and we will use it here. Go over to this little X, and now we can find it here. And here I also want an error count. Let me click save here. I know that each time this one fails this extract data from web page, then we will have an error. So let me double click to open it. Go into the on error. Here I'll make a new rule. So here I'll also be setting a variable. Give it the name error count. And similar to before, I will say error count +1. And remember a percentage sign. Then we can click save. Now we will use that in the log as well. So here we now have an error count as well. There it was. Then for the successful names, I'll click save here. In the beginning, we'll create a new list, and here we will add the names to it. A list is just a variable type that will store items of the same type. We can do it in a set variable, but we also have an action for that. So here, create new list. Yeah. We can call this list something. This will be the success names, like this. I'll save it like this. Then I know, again, right after this extract data from web page where we had this success count, we will also add an item to the list. So here we will say add item to list, drag it in right here. And what list do I want to add to? That will be the success names. So let's go find the success names. Then I want to add an item. That will be the name of that search. That is the current product. So here you'll go find the current product. Then in hard brackets, single quotation marks, we will say product like this and a hard bracket end. There you go. Now we can use that list down here in the robot successful, the log of the robot successful. So here, successful names. We will do almost similar with the arrow names. Now I will just introduce a subflow. So here I click save. Then we go up here. We will also add a list for the arrows. So create new list. And this was not a create new list. This was an add item to list. So let's go find it. That's just the way it goes when sometimes things goes a little bit fast. Fine. Create new list. And here I want to say arrow names, and I'll click save. So the intuition here is that I will create a subflow. And each time we have an arrow here, we want to run that subflow. So let's create a subflow by having this drop down a new subflow. And here I will call this arrow names list and click save. The intuition about a subflow is that if we call it from the main, then we will perform it and then we'll move back to the main just after that. And here I'll just add an item to the list again. So I'll do this. Into what list? That will be the arrow names. This one here. And up here, I will have the current product again. Like this. And we can click save. Now we just need to call it from the actual main. Where do I want to call it? I want to call it inside this extract data from web page when an arrow happens. So double click on arrow. And here we will create a new rule. So we have this arrow count, but we'll also have a new rule. Run subflow. And that will be the arrow names list. Click save. Now we can use that arrows names list in the log as well. Oh, we are getting there. So the arrow names list, that's this one here. One thing that we'll need to do is that we can remove this space from after this and this list. This is because the list creates a double space, another space after them. So in order to make our log look nice, we will do like this. Now we can make our date. We can use the date that we used for the file, but that's not really nice. So what I will do is save, then go up to where we have this to get current date and time and convert date time to text. So here I will find a convert date time to text, find it here and drag it in. The date time to convert, that is still the current date and time. I'll just need to make it a little bit nicer to look at. Still use the standard. And here I'll use the full date time, long time. It will look like this. The variables produced is called formatted date time. Let's call it formatted date time for log. I will click save. Move down to the actual here. And up here, I will have the variable of the date. So here I'll have the formatted date time for log. I will click save. Now we can use that log, for example, write it to our project folder, or we can send an email. Why don't we do both? So let's start by finding a write text to file here and drag it in after the log. So the file path, well, I have the project path here. And where should we keep it? We can add a log folder for our project here. So if I go here, I can have a log look like this. Then we can move back inside our Automate desktop is here. So here I'll have the project path, I'll have the log, and then I'll have the file name. Here I want to use the date once more so I don't overwrite anything. So here I'll have the formatted date time. I'll just have this. I'll say log.txt. It will just be a notepad file. So what text do I want to write? Well, I just have my log variable. It's here. I'll not append a new line. That's fine. Overwrite existing content. Well, it's not really. We know that this one is quite unique. So I can just click save here. Let's also see how, if we wanted to send an email with the result, what that will look like. So first I will find a launch Outlook, find it here, drag it in. So this one will just launch a new Outlook instance. That's fine. Then I will have a send email message to Outlook. And here, these arrows will come and go, or just ignore them. It's unfortunately what we have to deal with sometimes, but and we'll have to make it down here. So the account that I want to use, that is your data account. Mine is my email. It looks like this. Who do I want to send this log to? I don't want to spam anyone, so let's just send it to myself, like this. And here I can have subject, log for your robot that ran. And again, this one is, you could of course make it a lot nicer. You can do a lot of things to it. So let's just do it very simple. We can have the log. We can even add the attachments or anything that we wanted here. But we want to do it very, very simple. We just created our log and we'll click save. Then we can choose to close our web browser finally, and we'll have a close web browser, and we can have that here, or actually after up here. But I prefer to sometimes have all the close ones at the same time. We can have it here at the close Excel. Here we will close the browser instance. That's fine. I'll click save. So now we build our very advanced flows with error handling, scripting, multiple searches, web scraping, logging, everything you can think of. Let's try to kick it off and see that the last added parts works, especially the logging. I will lean back, fast forward the video, and then we will inspect it. That's it. Let's try to inspect the results. First, I will open up the email that our robot sent me. Here it is. That is our nice log. Your robot ran on, and then this entire log that we created together. Let's also inspect the actual log. It's in here. To open it, it of course looks the same because it's the same variable produced. Now you want to network and practice Power Automate Desktop. Do it at my Discord. It's completely free. We are more than 5,000 developers. Here's how to join.